Hey, crypto YouTubers! It is CoinPicker.us with some really good outlooks for some of our favorite cryptocurrencies. We're going to go over EOS, obviously BTC, a little bit on Ethereum, talk about some big news that has impacted the market lately, and also my theme on what's going on with commodities versus stocks and the US dollar index. Everything seems to be playing out pretty well, so stay tuned. Welcome back. So we'll start out with BTC on a monthly basis, and it is all good on a monthly basis. Now, ideally in an ideal world, we would like to see CCI, Commodity Channel Index, below here before it springs up. But in the crypto space, that rarely happens. Rarely happens. So this is absolutely satisfactory. It's got a nice tilt up, which means it's a reasonable move. When you get and I can't really show it to you here, but when you get an aggressive move up, you have a distance to ride it naturally, and it's a good trade, but it also isn't typically sustainable. You'll often get a pretty harsh bounce back. In this case, this is a nice steady rise up, which is what we've been seeing in the market after we got a fairly major upshoot. But this is all good. On a monthly basis, Bitcoin is looking really positive. This at this point has a potential. It looks like it could even hit that 14 mark that I've been talking about. It's too early to say that for certain, but it is definitely a rideable trend from this point. When it was at 70 something, 74ish, I had put out my last video and suggested that we could have further to go, and that's basically what's been going on a weekly basis. Let's see where we're at. It's great on a weekly basis. Great. Full recovery mode. Plenty of room to run is what it shows here. Plenty of room to run. And on a daily basis, that may not be the case because on a daily basis, it's toppy. Toppy and heading down. So longer time frame. If you're day trading it right now, you'd have to be very fleet in terms of you'd have to be very fast in terms of your trading. It's definitely toppy today. This is kind of the same thing I said the other day when we had a major move up. I said it was very toppy for the day, but for the week and for the month, we were in pretty good shape, and that thus far seems to be the case. But I wouldn't jump in on it, right now. It does not look like a good day trade. However, on the week and month trade, absolutely. So if you're willing to hold longer, there's profit in it for you. Let's take a look at Ethereum. Ethereum is poised but hasn't made the move. So it's in a setup phase. You can see blue hasn't crossed red. We haven't really converted into a positive move yet. This is CCI is slightly up, but it's a trending. We're still sellers in control. Not exactly the time to take an immediate position. On a daily basis, it almost looks trending. Nothing particularly exciting for Ethereum. If you're an EOS fan, however, on a weekly basis, we've got a pretty decent setup. Not a screaming one. We've just achieved balance between buyers and sellers, and we're getting a slight upward bent in CCI. We're in the region where we do get where we begin to see a trend towards the upside generally. So if you're an EOS holder, it's either a time to accumulate, but I wouldn't sell at this point. I think there's upward potential. Now, I haven't looked at a lot of the other projects lately, just because it's the whole story's been BTC, and in fact I think it will continue to be BTC because the big money is coming in, and the big money for the most part can't really go into the smaller markets as easily. Now, one that's been soaking up a lot of attention is Stellar. For good reason. Stellar has been pushed by IBM. It's kind of interesting. IBM also uses Hyperledger, and they'll ride any horse, but Stellar's got a lot of attention, and Litecoin has been dead in the water for a while. Let's see what else is really doing. Binance Coin is a positive coin to hold. Binance basically seems to be one of the foundational elements of cryptocurrencies. Unless some regulatory thing happens or some major hack happens, Binance and Binance Coin is a positive positive held. Zaliqua. That's been actually an outperformer for a little while. Kind of an interesting project. Icon, Bitcoin Gold. I mean, nothing major major excitement. I mean, I don't know what I post. This almost looks like it just got listed somewhere. Either that or a pump. Let's see here. Social. I haven't followed it. Uh, Partnership. Okay. Well, that's positive. I mean, maybe that was the news. Decentralized dev-friendly EOS. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Social media feeds. I have to look into that. Um, but the bottom line on it is that there are some projects that are showing outperformance, but by and large, the market is moving in time. Komodo is a good one, always been a good one. By and large, the market is moving in time with Bitcoin with a slight lower bias from most of the altcoins relative to Bitcoin. So keep that in mind. Bitcoin is definitely the game in town, and the primary reason for that is if we go here, um, you're talking about the big institutional money finally getting in. And one of the news articles that impacted everything was that the Bitcoin ETF was very close to being approved. So that is that's the sounding bell for institutional money to jump into the market, and that could level up. 1 billion into the crypto market could add, gosh knows. I mean, depending on where it goes, but it's really can only go into a few of the projects. If you go into some of these small, thinly traded projects, it would just blow it up. So it can only really go to the few of the projects, and 1 billion in is, I don't know, 25, 30 billion plus, depending on how it's traded in terms of market value, probably even more than that. And if you get, 10 and 20 billion, you're talking about taking the market cap, which is sitting at just shy of 300 billion, and tacking on, 4 billion, 5, that kind of money coming in, you could tack on, we could tack on 100 billion relatively quickly. So, and that would have knock-on effects, obviously, on all the alternative currencies, the altcoins rather. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're getting the funding. Now, we might see a rush of people coming back in just because of the leadership that the top currencies will show. But if we go back to what I was talking about, you're seeing more activity with serious institutional hedge fund money. And that's what we've been talking about for a long time, because we had early adopters into the market that lifted it up, and then a lot of them got fleeced. Some of them still held on, but a lot of them got fleeced. And the institutional money couldn't get in for a number of reasons. The regulatory environment wasn't set up to allow them to do it. Now it is. And that opens the door for the institutional money to level up the market to a level, to an area perhaps reaching or even potentially exceeding where we were. I'm not saying that that's going to happen right now. I can't say that because I don't have enough data on who's funding the market and when they're going to do it. But when you look at Reddit co-founder Alex Ona upholds Bitcoin 20,000, I mean, you're seeing these predictions again, and you're seeing also some big money hedge fund founders, not actually the corporate version, but the founder like Blackstone and other ones, are getting into the cryptos. So it's a little surprising because they're kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth. They say it's a useless item in some case, there's no way to get money out of it and all that, but they're still investing in it. So like the Uber ex-CTO, let's see what else here. Catalonia, well, that doesn't really matter that much. Startup, yeah, it's not showing here, but the other thing, Coinbase partnered with a partnered, maybe a strong term, but is working with a $20 billion hedge fund. So some of these funds are going to find their way into the crypto space. I don't know that anybody's coming in with $20 billion, at least from one fund, but nonetheless, that's what's going to be impacting the current market cap, focused on the top tier. The well, I don't say Ripple, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ripple potentially, but I don't. Bitcoin Cash, EOS potentially. Actually, EOS, as I said, EOS looks like it is about to begin to have a move. That's what I'm seeing. Stellar, definitely. Litecoin, Cardano is also moving up. I don't see it with IOTA. Actually, there could be a potential. I was going to say Tron. I don't see it with Tron. I think Tron has some systemic issues, essentially. It had a pretty good move, but look where it is ultimately. It's ultimately nowhere near its high. Monero is still a positive one. Neo, Dash. I mean, look where Dash is relative to where it was. Dash used to be through the roof. Ethereum Classic, of course, has gained some traction, but Ethereum's always going to suffer from that scaling issue. NEM doesn't have the scaling issue. Tezos, that's really kind of a shock that it's made it that far, that fast. But anyway, and Binance Coin I think is fantastic, but Binance, the issue with Binance for a hedge fund is that they're never really going to control it. I mean, it's not designed to be as fungible as Bitcoin is. So I think Binance Coin may not get that kind of money, but you never know. So essentially, what we're looking at is very positive long term for Bitcoin. The monthly readings are suggesting we have a good ride up. On the daily reading, we have a settling down. Definitely, we popped up very high. Weekly reading, we also have a pretty good ride up. Let me make sure. Let me confirm that. Also have a great ride in position. So that's safe. Ethereum is getting ready for it, but it isn't there. Daily basis, not doing very much. Weekly basis, it's got some momentum developing, but it's not there yet. And on a monthly basis, I don't think the data is that good on a month. Yeah, on a monthly basis, the data is not good enough. EOS, as I said, well, wait a minute here. Oh, this is a 1 week. That's what I'll stick with a week. On a weekly basis, EOS is setting up for a pretty nice move. A pretty nice move. I would love to see EOS move to the top of the channel. I don't see that happening, not from what these are saying. What I would see it do is go back to the channel, maybe hit that 10, perhaps a little higher. We're gonna have to keep watching it, but it's definitely set up for one at this point. So been holding EOS for a while, and we'll continue to do so. So what I want to talk about on the straight financial market, the legacy financial market, is that let's just go over a couple of things here. Let's take a look at the major indices. All right. Dow's had a decent run. S&P. Now the Nasdaq has been more of the barn burner still, and that's because of the top few stocks, Microsoft reporting in, Google, all those. I have to admit, it's gone a little higher than I would have expected it to. But that's not unusual in a major topping pattern. It's not unusual. The problem with the Nasdaq, and to a certain extent, the problem with the Dow, but the problem with the Nasdaq is it's just so narrowly focused. Like Apple or the FANGs are the ones carrying all the movement, practically, of the Nasdaq. All the movement, and that is an incredibly risky scenario. Incredibly risky. Netflix itself, burning through an amazing amount of capital. So my view still holds that these are last gasp moves. Granted, earlier the high was 75.60. We've gone up 350-ish points from there. So what is that? Less than 5%. I don't get excited about a 5% move. I don't get excited about a 5% move. So as I've been saying, and I will continue to say, the reward to the upside is nowhere near the danger to the downside. That's been my opinion in the stock market. That's why I say shorting, if you know what you're doing, is the better move. Even if you don't get anywhere near the downside target of the option, it is the better move. And I think at some point, that's going to be fulfilled. That's why I say long dated shorts, long dated puts. You don't go a week, a month, something like that, 2, 3 months, 4 months out, that kind of a thing. And that way you're bound to get a shorting period, like a short beneficial period where the market drops. I mean, we've already had it on the Nasdaq. If you take a look at it here, uh, let's see if we can see if a day chart. I mean, a period like this, you're capturing, even if you don't get anywhere near your short strike price, you're probably going to be doing quite well in terms of the overall value of your investment. You're going to do quite well. You're going to pick up quite a bit of profit. Same thing up here. Now that we've crested to new highs, and on relatively low volume, look at that. Of course, we have a little bit more time to go, but relatively low volume. I mean, it's set up for me for another short, basically. It's set up for another short. Now, there's no denying that we've got a pretty nice upward momentum here. But if I had the stochastics going on this, and I probably should do that. If I had stochastics running on it, I'm guessing that they would be screaming, get out while you can. Let me get rid of this here. Yeah, let's see what we can see here. Indicators. Let's just stochastic RSI and CCI. And let's see what they say. Could be wrong. Yeah. Actually, CCI is not as toppy as I would have thought, but the stochastic RSI is fairly toppy. Oh, that's on a day. Let's do it on a weekly basis. Yeah, well, we're toppy here. We're definitely toppy on a weekly basis. So that's why I say this type of an entry point is a high probability trade for a put. High probability trade because you're toppy in both regions. You could wait a little bit, but still generally high probability for a downward move. Now, let's talk about the US dollar index, which is thankfully massively agreeing with my theme that I've been talking about. Notice that the dollar has dropped and Bitcoin has risen. It wasn't lockstep, but it was pretty tight. And it's dropped precipitously. Keep in mind, I made a video a while ago where I said that everybody is disagreeing with me. Everybody's telling me that the dollar is going to be going up and up. And I, like Martin Armstrong said, everything else is cooked. The dollar's going to be rising. And the dollar was rising. And I said, nope, it's a head fake. The dollar is going to have a reversion to mean at some point in the not too distant future, which is going to have an impact that looks like this. You see this? Now, who talked to you about U.S. wheat going supernova? Yes, I said that long before it did. Long before it did. Those of you who have followed me for a while know that I've been pounding the table on the softs and how well they're going to do. 6% in a day. In a day. This is a massively traded market. We're going to continue to see these kinds of days. Now, part of it's the fact that the dollar has dropped. Absolutely, commodities are the balance. They're other side of the trade. They're priced in dollars, therefore dollar goes down, commodity price will go up. But that's only half the story. Now, fortunately, most traders are going to get head faked by the price increase in commodities, thinking it's the dollar dropping. Only a part of the story, and I might add, not the most significant part of the story. So the point of what I'm saying is that the themes that I have been discussing and which nobody in their right mind was pushing this way. Nobody was talking about it. Those themes are coming to fruition. We're seeing it on a day like today. Now, to my discredit, I would say, I am somewhat surprised by the strength in the stock market, but it's still, like I said, Nasdaq up 5%, Dow's up a little bit. It's not the kind of action that is even really worth paying attention to in my book. Unless you're coining, as I said, over 20% in a trade, you're treading water half the time. You're treading water. When you're talking about commodities doing 6+% in a day, it's hard to get excited about the Nasdaq rising what 5% in several months. It just does not equate. Now, granted, individual stocks have done some have done very very well, but I'm just comparing the indices to the soft trades and commodities. So the theme that I've been talking about, where you short the stock market, the financial markets, and you go long in commodities, is playing out beautifully today. Crude oil is still hovering and rising. Copper bottomed out. Now, copper, I have to inform this. Copper, it's called Dr. Copper, and it predicts the economy. If you actually look at the chart of copper prices and economic growth, you'll find that it's nowhere. It's a very bad doctor. It doesn't copper does not affirmatively show when the GDP is going to be rising or falling. It does a very poor job of it, especially lately. Now, why is that? Because China started to demand that loans be backed in copper, essentially, and people were holding copper in massive warehouses, and that was unusual. It wasn't always the case. So that represented this massive overhang in the market. It pushed copper up unnaturally and now has allowed it to drop somewhat unnaturally. Now, this is also indicative of home building slowing, as has been shown with the home building stock charts. Home building slowing, China slowing some construction. Construction loans are being pulled back. That's somewhat indicative of copper. But the other thing that's happening, that's the flip side that almost nobody pays attention to, and I've mentioned it, is that the mining companies begin to shut down capacity, or they are losing money, so they go out of business. And the way the mining business works is you have some majors, and then you have a whole lot of miners. You have small companies. I'm using the term miners, and it sounded like the same thing. You have big companies, the BHP Pillotons, Freeport McMoran, those kinds of things, those kind of companies, and the copper producers out of Mexico and the ones in China. I mean, really big copper producers. U.S. produces quite a bit of copper, and the big mines will shut down relatively quickly if they're losing money, or they'll hold back production from the marketplace. So the cure for low prices is low prices. It shuts them down. And the cure for high prices is high prices. People stop buying it, basically. That's what happens. So we will see, we already have seen some miners pulling back, and some mining companies just ceasing operation. And it doesn't take much. It's at the margins. When that happens at the margins, bam, supply gets tight. That's what happens. Now, copper could take a while before that would happen. But I still say, even though copper is indicating that the metals are not going to have a run, I still say the metals will have a run. It's not going to start right away. It'll be towards the end of the year or a little bit later. But this is the time to take positions. However, the softs, the wheat, the soybeans, even the animals, even the pigs and the pork bellies rather, cattle, all that. Now, cattle, of course, we've got an issue with cattle where, because of the tariff trades, we've got an overabundance of beef and things like that. That's going to work through. It will take some time. But the rest of the softs, corn, all of that, are going to do exceptionally well, like barn-burning returns. So my thesis thus far has been largely playing out. And then the crypto space, the big hitters are in a good position. The path to profit projects, one that I shared with my subscribers, and some other ones that I'm hunting for, those are hanging on. Those are hanging on. But we have lost a lot of cryptocurrencies. I mean, the tail end. If you go deep into the cryptocurrency chart, you'll find that a lot of them have sort of disappeared. But that's okay. That's natural. I mean, we don't need all of these cryptocurrencies. However, I think the selection is fantastic. So all in all, great upbeat report. The cryptocurrencies have some runway now, especially with BTC. There's some fantastic news in terms of the money coming into the market place, and it's going to reform the market. I mean, get ready for that. It's going to change things somewhat, make it a little bit more volatile in some areas, but it will definitely lift the overall capital involved. The major stock indices stocks are overbought and will be the opportunities to the downside. Commodities are underbought. The opportunities massively to the upside for a long time. You're in relatively early if you do it now. So, and the dollar index, as I said, the dollar index, uh, I mean, it's pretty much taken the turn as I thought it would, and I think we could see it go down, fairly significantly, and that's only going to positively impact the commodity. So, this is a really long report, but hopefully you got some value out of it, and I will follow up with these predictions shortly and see how I did. Thank you.